Okay, so here we go, day number 16. I guess we're on the downward slide of this challenge. So um, today I was thinking about something a little different. Actually, I was thinking it's kind of a little bit different than what I've been doing. Most of the time for this challenge, I've been working more intuitively. Um, but then there have been times whenever I've sat down and kind of have thought about some things before I got started, but I really have not had sort of any notion in mind, like I'm going to make something that looks like something that I have in my head. But today is a little different. So I was just kind of thinking, reflecting about on this challenge, and an idea popped into my head, and I thought, like, okay, I've got to try this. And so the idea that I have actually comes from a piece that I made a while back, and it's something that it was the one that was like really different from all the others. So I thought I'd maybe go back and revisit that one and try to not recreate it, but use that as inspiration. And so this might be something that on a podcast that I really like called the Creative Pep Talk by Andy J. Pizza. He talks about this like as plagiarizing yourself. So going back to something that you've done that you've really liked and plagiarizing yourself with it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and kind of plagiarize myself. So before I dive into that, as always, if you want to pop into the comments and say hi, awesome. I see that Rhonda is back again, so awesome. I appreciate people that come back day after day, but also appreciate anybody that might be tuning in for the first time. So anyway, let me go ahead and switch over. So like I was saying, I'm going to kind of plagiarize myself, and I'm going to go back and I'm looking at this piece in particular. So I forget exactly what day this was, but it was probably about a week and a half ago that I made this, and it ended up just being very different than all my other pieces because there's no geometric shapes in it. And so I wanted to kind of go back to that. I got this idea. I'm not going to try to recreate this, but I'm going to use some kind of similar imagery. And I really like on this piece how the collage pieces fit into this design, into this kind of organic design. So I've thought a little bit more about that and maybe thinking specifically how I might do that on purpose. Here it was almost a fluke. I mean, it really was. I ripped the collage and glued it on, and then realized that I could kind of draw around it and sort of blend the torn collage in. So today I think I'm going to try to do this on a more purposeful level. And I think that's what, a lot of times with art, that's what we do. We do something and we're like, oh, I like that. That turned out really cool. Let me see if I can either do it again or do it again in a way that's even better. So anyway, I'm going to start off today maybe using a different color scheme than that. So not really sure, but I'm just going to, I like this fuchsia, this pink. So just going to kind of paint this down. I want it to be kind of thin and not too dark right now. And we'll kind of see where it goes. Add a little bit of water to get some different values going. So again, I'm not trying to copy that piece, but I'm using it as inspiration. I'm using it as something to sort of base my work on. So I think I'm gonna kind of work very similar. So again, this is the one I'm sort of basing my ideas off of, and I kind of think I started very similarly, but I'm gonna go with this is the fuchsia Inktense pencil. Goes really nice with this pink. I'm not sure what the color is. This is a core, a different company, but I'm going to use this kind of organic growing line. And I did something similar yesterday, and I talked about how some people see it as very tree-like, even though it's not. It, I don't. I don't set out to be like, oh, I'm going to draw a tree. I really kind of think of it more as just an organic form. But it seems like every time I kind of do this, people are like, oh, the tree. And it's like, well, I could see that, like trunk and the crown, the leaves, but yeah. But definitely organic in nature. I'm not going to put in too many yet. Too many lines. But go ahead. But go ahead and paint over the lines. Going to move to a slightly darker color. So this is called Deep Rose. So it's kind of like a slightly darker, kind of like a darker fuchsia, really. And I'm not tracing every single line, and I put a few new lines in there. And then we just do the same thing. Actually, I'm going to use a slightly different brush. This is a round brush. It has more of a point on it. Allow me to kind of go with the lines a little bit better than that other brush. So one thing I'm really thinking about with this is kind of the space. So there's a positive space, which is that organic form, and then there's these two negative spaces. And I like how that sort of fits together. So let me go ahead and try this. so here's kind of what I'm thinking. So I've created these little kind of shapes. You can probably see them a little bit better like on this one. So there are these very organic kind of leaf-like shapes or petal-like shapes that get created from this way of working. And so I've got, some of those very similar ones here. And so what I was thinking is I've got a pile of collage materials. And I was thinking like, oh, it might be kind of interesting to use the collage materials and to cut out some of those kind of leaf-like shapes and glue them in. And I have no idea if this is going to work the way I sort of have it envisioned in my head. And so like I was saying, if you missed it earlier, I'm using this piece as inspiration for this piece, kind of this notion of plagiarizing myself. And what I'm thinking of is how I can cut some of these sort of organic leaf-like shapes out of the collage material and then find spots. It might not fit exactly like, oh, it fits exactly in that one spot. But if it sort of fits, and then maybe it can get glued in. I think I'll go ahead and glue that in there. And so I just have a variety of collage materials. We'll see how this works. And so just kind of thinking about that approach, like, I've been really thinking a lot about working intuitively. And so this kind of is a different way. It's taking something that I've done and just sort of thinking about like, okay, let's use that as inspiration. Let's see if we can do something with that. So I kind of think of it as just a way to be a little bit more thoughtful. I mean, we can always, I guess we can, always just work intuitively. But then I think at some point we want to kind of be a little bit more conscious with our making. And so, again, I just have a variety of materials that I can use, and I'm just trying to think about like the direction that some of these go. So it's like they don't have to fit perfectly in there, but just to sort of go in that direction. And like I was saying, this was just an idea that kind of just sprung to mind as I was looking at that one piece. And it was just like, oh, what if I was a little bit more deliberate with how I cut out the pieces? And so I'm just trying to repeat some of these materials throughout the piece just to help keep things tied together. So if you're just tuning in and you want to pop into the comments and say hi. I don't know if you all can hear my cat meowing because she's locked outside of the room. I close the door. I'm so mean to her. So I just have a variety of things. Not really sure what would go with it. Okay, I'm liking it so far. Now the question is, did I just jinx myself? Got this piece in one of my bills or something from my county about voting. And I thought, well, that might be kind of cool to use in my artwork today. So I'm trying to cut these pieces so that they kind of fit the general direction, but then also maybe so that they can fit up against some of the other pieces too. Alright, so I think I've got a pretty good patchwork of shapes. I think I want to try maybe put some of the Inktense pencil down next. Maybe go with my Shiraz, which is that kind of darker, kind of burgundy-ish color. So this is where I'm going to start to really try to incorporate that collage into the piece. So my idea is that the darker Shiraz color will kind of act like the shadow, the line between pieces. And really help tie everything together. Before I do that, I want to hit this with the hair dryer. So I'm going to use this pointy brush, this round brush again. So this is going to bring a little bit of color kind of into and over top of the collage pieces. So it's going to tint them and really help press them into the work so they're not just sort of floating on top. So it's really going to kind of tone down those lighter papers. But then just kind of give things a tint or a tone to help tie it all together. That just really kind of darkens some things and helps tie it together. Do have one little piece there that's kind of coming up a little bit. Okay, I think to heighten this effect, just like I did with this one, I'm going to use some of the black ink on it. And this will just really define the shapes and the forms. No idea what my dogs are barking about. Probably barking at the cats. Got another little piece kind of came unglued. Alright, I like how that's turning out. And I think I'll pull out my colored pencils. This one that's similar to the Shiraz. And just use that to add a little bit of shading. seeing these little spots where I forgot to put some ink. I'm not doing a whole lot of shading. I'm just trying to make some areas a little bit darker, maybe create a little bit of form so that some of the shapes look a little bit rounded. I'm just going to use a little bit of white to come in and create a little bit of highlight. I've done this before, and it's very subtle. The white isn't super opaque, so it doesn't cover up all of the paint and stuff underneath, but it can just add a touch of light that can really enhance that feel of 3 dimensions and just bring a little bit of contrast to the shapes. And I'm thinking that this one's done, and looking at the time, I think I definitely do need to call it done and wrap it up. Kind of surprised, like, oh, where did that last hour go? Unfortunately, I think my pen got some glue on it. So kind of compare them. I mean, I didn't want them to be exactly the same, but kind of using some similar ideas. Yeah, I think it turned out pretty well the way it did. I mean, just kind of having this notion of like, oh well, what if I did this? And so that's kind of what I ended up doing, was just sort of like, I was looking at the artwork going, oh well, what if I cut out the individual shapes? What would that look like? And so being able to sit down and try that, now it seemed to work out pretty well, and I'm pleased with the results, but it could have turned out disastrous. And that's the thing about art, is sometimes you have this notion in mind, like I'm gonna try this. This is what I'm envisioning, and then to sit down and actually do it, sometimes, like I said, it can be kind of disastrous. So, or it just doesn't go the way you had planned. So yeah. Anyway, so thanks for joining me once again. I'm going to take a look at the comments. So if you have any questions, anything like that, pop them into the comments. And yeah, just kind of that notion of plagiarizing yourself, of going back, looking at the things that you've been doing. Is there something that's striking you, something that you feel like, hey, I really like how this is going? That can then become a point to look to, a point to explore, to experiment, to try, and just trying to push it, trying to see where it can go. Like I said, I had something envisioned and wasn't quite sure if it would work out, but fortunately it did today. So let me go ahead. I know a couple of you commented. Let me go ahead and take a look. All right, so yeah, so thank you for tuning in, and if you have been liking the videos, you've been following along, awesome. Make sure, if you're on social media, you can post images, or you can post the images in the comments. I always love seeing what people have been doing as they've been working along. And then, not only like the video, but hit that share button. So whether you're tuning in live on Facebook or you're watching on YouTube, hit the share button. Let people know about this, because I think quite a few people have been sort of tuning in and kind of seeing what is going on. So I appreciate any kind of help in spreading the word. So let me just go ahead and take another look at the comments. All right, so again, if you have any questions, post them in the comments, and I will be happy to respond to them later. But for now, I'm going to sign off. So thank you for tuning in for day 16. Only 14 more days left, so we're definitely on that downhill slide now. So anyway, I really appreciate you being here and taking a look and hopefully making some art with me.